Hi, I'm Daniel Green, and I love to show people how you can make fast restaurant-style food healthy, but also out of a can. How would you love to make something like this? A delicious Italian risotto. And all you need is a can of mushrooms, peas, some rice, olive oil, garlic, dried basil, and turn it into this. Watch how we do it as we fire up the pantry. So we're gonna make a beautiful Italian risotto with peas and mushrooms. Let me show you what you need. A can of mushrooms, bet you got that in your cupboard. Some peas, they can be frozen or in a can. Garlic, I love fresh, but you've obviously got a tube here, which is perfect for in the pantry. We've got some rice. Now, it's not just any rice, it's arborio rice. That's the risotto rice. And it absorbs the liquid as you stir it to get this wonderful creamy texture. So you really do need this to make the perfect risotto. I've got some olive oil, dried basil, and then a stock cube. I'm gonna go over to my stove and show you how easy it is in 20 minutes to make the perfect risotto. Now, foods certainly have their trend in life, and I remember in the early 90s, there wasn't a restaurant in London that didn't have a risotto on the menu. And I remember cooking them, and I remember loving all the different varieties you could make, but my personal way to cook is really low fat, and to me that's healthy. By doing that, I'm gonna tweak the real original by not using butter, and we're not using cheese, but we're still gonna get this incredible texture you get from risotto. This is what you need. A stock cube. You can use fresh stock if you want, but we're trying to use things that you might already have. I'm gonna take a stock cube and I'm gonna add it to a big saucepan. You've got to add boiling water to the rice. It's just that simple, because every time you add that liquid, it's got to be the same temperature. If it isn't, you're going to stop that cooking process. I'm going to take some olive oil. This is a beautiful one. It's got a wonderful basil infusion of flavor. So it's got a little bit more flavor than most regular olive oils. Now, normally you'd start off with some onion, but I'm using things that we've got at hand. And then I put in this arborio rice. And it's very similar to a sushi rice. And what I'm gonna do is just turn it and coat it in that very little bit of olive oil that I put in there. Now, this is also a really important part to making a great risotto. What we want is to get that risotto burning hot before we add the first ladle of stock. So we're really ready to absorb this flavor. And risottos do need constant stirring. They need adding liquid a little bit at a time, but it is really simple. It's 20 minutes, full stop, start to finish. As you start it, keep adding liquid, one ladle at a time. 20 minutes later, you've got a perfect risotto. First step, garlic. Because we're gonna be cooking this for 20 minutes, we want a nice generous amount of that garlic because it's gonna lose a lot of its power as we cook it. Getting that flavor going, I'm gonna add some seasoning. I'm gonna add a little bit of dried basil. I'm gonna add a little bit at the beginning. Because it's dried, it's going to penetrate through that rice. If it was fresh, I wouldn't add it till the end. So now I've got a little bit of flavor from that dried basil. It's amazing what a freeze-dried herb can do. It really comes to life when you cook with it. I'm gonna take really hot stock. And you're gonna hear this as I turn the temperature up a little bit. We're gonna pop it in to the pan. That's the sound we want, that's what we need. And what you've now got is the very beginning of a step that you're gonna repeat and repeat and repeat. So what we'll do is we'll take that first ladle and you just wanna keep stirring it. Every 30 seconds, give it another stir. Let it absorb and puff out, and that is just the way risottos are done. And then I'm gonna add the mushrooms now. I don't mind if there's a little bit of liquid because it kind of acts as a little bit of the broth as well. And then we still stir it and get this cooking. Now, a beautiful way to make a risotto is porcini dried mushrooms. If you want more flavor, you soak them in the water and you use that as the stock, giving a more intense mushroom flavor. But I want to show people simplicity, easy ways to make a dish that really is fabulous. Now another ladle of stock. Again, keep that process turning as you go. And I can start to see this change. Now, I don't know what it is in the arborio rice, but it's got a creamy texture. It's got a wonderful flavor. And You know, it takes me back to my travels, and when you've had something that tastes brilliant, you want to make it again. I remember going to one of the best restaurants in New York, and I remember in the early 90s sitting in this big dining room and the smell of this risotto that came through with shaved truffles. It was something that was so exciting to me, and the first flavor and the first time I had it, it meant a lot to me. So it's so nice to go back to an original. So again, I've kind of tweaked a real traditional recipe, and that's always been my philosophy, is how can I make something a little bit more of a rehabbed version? How can I make it a skinny version? And there is definitely carbohydrates in rice. We've got the carbohydrates, but we don't need the fat. And traditionally, risottos have got a little bit of butter to start off the onion and garlic. There's normally quite an amount of cheese added at the end, and sometimes cream. But I really don't think you miss it. I think you can make some great flavors in here and still have a brilliant risotto without the fat. And now I'm gonna add some of those peas for even more texture. It's quite amazing what 2 cans can do and make this spectacular. Now, as we're stirring it, it's growing and it's absorbing all the liquid, and it is a little bit monotonous, I know that, but it's the only way to do a perfect risotto is to add a ladle at a time. Now, I am gonna add one other ingredient at the end, and if you can invest in this, it is a brilliant thing to have for so many reasons. I've got a black truffle oil. You can buy white truffle oil. It's just an olive oil that's infused with the flavor. You don't want to cook with it, because what will happen there is you kind of lose the flavor in it. It's expensive. You drizzle it on at the end, and it's got the most incredible flavor. It really has. The aroma of this is fantastic. I mean, it's Italy in a bottle. So we're gonna add a little at the end, but if you do buy some of this, it's great for just pouring over some roasted Brussels sprouts or some mushrooms or vegetables, and it just lifts it, gives a huge different profile to the dish that you're making. Another thing with risotto, you do really need to make it as you're cooking it to eat it. You don't want to leave this and let it kind of overcook, and you want it a little bit al dente. It's got to have a bite to that rice. 20 minutes just works every time. The only reason 20 minutes sometimes doesn't work is if you're not using that boiling water. So make sure boiling water, rice, ladle at a time. And you know what? We're almost ready. Okay, now it's all absorbed. I've got all of that broth totally absorbed by this beautiful rice. Now, let's dress it up and make it restaurant style from a can. Best in one of these, it's a pastry ring. You can buy it anywhere, go online, type in pastry ring, different sizes. It is amazing what you can do just to make food look fabulous and restaurant style. I take that and take a very nice helping of our risotto. Throw them in a dishwasher. You can actually make one yourself. It's just a can, open it at both ends, and you can use it. Make sure you clean it well. I'm gonna take this amazing truffle oil. I'm gonna sprinkle dried basil for decoration around the side. I'm gonna lift it up. And that is restaurant style Italian risotto that we made out of a can. So make sure you subscribe and come back and join us anytime, right here on Fire Up The Pantry.